Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about the engine that powers so much of the modern AI you hear about. It's a huge idea that has totally changed the game: machine learning. So, how does a computer actually learn anything? Let's dive right in.
Now, just so you know, all the info for this explainer comes straight from Chapter 3 of a course on AI made specifically for students around your age. So we're going to be focusing on the key ideas they lay out right there in that chapter.
So to kick things off, I've got a question for you. I want you to really think back. How did you learn what a dog is? Did your parents sit you down with a biology textbook and a checklist of canine features? I'm going to guess, probably not.
And that question leads us perfectly into our first section, learning like a human. Because believe it or not, the way you figured out what a dog is, well, it's a fantastic way to understand how machines learn too.
Right? There was no technical manual. Your parents just pointed. They pointed at a big, fluffy golden retriever and said, dog. They pointed at a tiny little chihuahua and said, dog. And over, your brain just started connecting the dots. It figured out the patterns on its own: 4 legs, a tail, fur, a bark. You learn from examples, not from a list of rules.
And that, right there, is the absolute heart of machine learning. It's all about teaching computers to do what your brain did naturally, to find patterns in tons of data, instead of having a programmer sit there and write out every single possible rule by hand.
This slide really shows you the before and after. On the left, that's the old way, traditional programming. A person has to think of every possibility and write an explicit rule for it. If you want to change something, you have to go back and manually update the rules. But on the right, that's machine learning. You just give the computer a whole bunch of examples. The computer finds the patterns itself. And this is the magic part. It adapts as it sees new stuff. It can actually get smarter all on its own.
So what does this process actually look like? Well, it usually breaks down into 4 big stages. First, you need data. And not just a little, you need thousands, sometimes millions of examples. Then you train the AI by feeding it all that data and letting it search for patterns. After that, you got to test it. You show it things it's never seen before to make sure it actually learned and didn't just memorize the answers. And finally, if it passes the test, it's ready to go out into the world and make predictions on brand new data.
Now, it turns out there isn't just one way to teach a machine. Which brings us to our next section, where we're going to look at the 3 main ways, or types, of machine learning.
First up, you have what's called supervised learning. This one is basically our dog example all over again. It's like having a teacher. You give the AI a massive data set where everything is neatly labeled with the correct answer. Thousands of photos labeled cat and thousands more labeled not a cat. The AI's job is just to figure out what features make something a cat.
Next, there's unsupervised learning. This time, we take the teacher away. There are no labels. You just dump a whole bunch of data on the computer and say, figure it out. For instance, you could give it 10,000 news articles, and it might start grouping them together into clusters. These are all about sports. These are about politics. These are about entertainment, all without you ever telling it what those categories were. It's all about discovering the hidden structure in the data.
And finally, we've got reinforcement learning. The best way to think about this one is like training a pet. The AI learns by just trying stuff, pure trial and error. When it does something that gets it closer to its goal, you give it a little reward, some positive feedback. When it makes a mistake, it gets a little penalty. You do that millions of times, and eventually it learns the best strategy to get the most rewards. This is exactly how AI learns to master something like a really complicated video game.
Okay, so the theory is cool and all, but what does this actually look like out in the real world? Let's take a look at a perfect example of this in action.
This right here is one of the best examples ever. The old Google Translate was a traditional program. Human linguists literally tried to write down every single grammar rule for every language. It was pretty clunky. The modern version? It just learned from data. It was fed billions of sentences that had already been translated by humans, and it just figured out the patterns. The result was a huge, massive leap forward in how natural and accurate it felt. It's a total game changer.
This brings us to our final section, and honestly, it might be the single most important thing to remember about how all this machine learning stuff really works. Let's talk about the secret ingredient.
Because no matter how fancy the algorithm is, no matter how powerful the computer, it all comes down to one thing: the data. A machine learning system is only as good, only as smart, and only as fair as the data we feed it. The data is absolutely everything.
And our source material says it perfectly with this quote:
If the data we give an AI is flawed, if it's incomplete, or if it reflects the biases that we humans have, the AI is going to learn those flaws too. It will see those biases as the truth. You've probably heard the saying, garbage in, garbage out. Well, it's never been more true than right here.
And so that's the final thought I want to leave you with. If these incredibly powerful AI systems are learning by watching us, by reading the things we write and looking at the images we create, what parts of ourselves are they learning from? What biases, what flaws are they picking up and maybe even making bigger? That's a huge question, and it's something we all need to be thinking about. Thanks for tuning in.